Alright, so the second video is equations of line. We're going to go over slope, slope-intercept form, writing the equations and point slope. So just a bunch of different stuff that deals with the equations of actual lines. Just like the last video, there are going to be some examples that you're in charge of doing on your own that I will not work out in this video. So the first thing we're going to talk about is finding slope. And we actually use something that we call the slope formula. And so hopefully you know what this is. I'm going to use the abbreviation m because m is the variable for slope. And what it is it's equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And y2, y1, x2, x1, those all come from the points that you're going to be given. So on this first example, and on all these examples, what we're going to do first is actually label our points. So if I go in and I label 5 as x1, that means that negative 1 has to be y1. And for the second point, 10 is going to be x2, and 2 is going to be y2. Because they're in the second point. It does not matter which one you do, but you have to be consistent. If they're in the same parentheses, they have to have the same number next to the x and the y. So I'm going to go ahead and over here write the formula again. We have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And all I'm going to do is plug straight in. So for y2, I have 2 minus my y1 is negative 1. So you have to be super careful, and I'm going to put parentheses around that negative. Over x2, which is 10, minus x1, which is 5. Now, because I have this minus negative here, that actually turns into a big plus sign. So moving forward, on top, I have 2 plus 1, which is 3, over 10 minus 5, which is 5. And so my slope, my m, is 3 over 5. You're responsible for doing example 2. Example 3, you are finding the slope between those 2 points using that slope formula. One of the ways we covered how to write an equation was slope-intercept form. This is the one that most people know and it's more common. This is your y is equal to mx plus b. Now, we already talked about how m stands for slope, and b is going to be your y-intercept. If it's given in a point, it is going to look like 0, comma, some number. So for these next examples, we're writing the equation of the line, and I give you the slope. And the point I give you is 0, negative 1. So if you check over here, it's 0, comma, a number. So I'm given the y-intercept, which means I can use this short version of y equals mx plus b. In order to use y equals mx plus b, I have to have all those variables. I have to have my m, and I have to have my b. I have m, which is negative 3. And I do have my b from my y-intercept, which is going to be the number in the parentheses, negative 1. So if I wanted to write this, I have y equals... my m is negative 3, and then I write the x next to it. And you can write plus negative 1, or you can just put the number and the sign exactly in. So the equation of this line would be negative 3x minus 1. You're going to do the exact same things for example 2 and example 3. We just talked briefly about using slope-intercept form when you're given the slope and the y-intercept, and it's super simple, straightforward. We're now going to talk about writing an equation in slope-intercept form if you're given 2 points. In these examples, I do happen to give you the slope or the y-intercept, but there are still some extra steps you have to follow. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to find the slope between the 2 points. You're going to use that slope formula we just talked about a couple seconds ago. You're going to look at the 2 points I give you and determine your b. Remember, it has to be 0, comma, some number, and your b is going to be that number. And once you have the slope and that y-intercept, you're going to plug into the equation just like we did on the previous examples. So example 1, I asked to write the equation of a line that goes through the points 2, negative 2, and 0, comma, 3. I told you step 1, we're going to find the slope. So I'm going to label my points as x1, y1, and x2, y2. I'm then going to plug them into the slope formula. So I take y2, which is 3, minus y1, which is negative 2, over x2, which is 0, minus x1, which is 2. Remember that 3 minus the negative 2 turns into a big plus sign. So on top, I now have 5, and 0 minus 2 is negative 2. So my slope is 5 over negative 2, which is negative 5 halves. I'm looking at my 2 points. One of them is 0, comma, a number, and that is this one right here. So that tells me that my y-intercept is actually that 3. So I know my b is equal to 3. My m is equal to negative 5 halves. So I can now plug into y equals mx plus b. And when I do that, I find out my equation is y equals negative 5 over 2x plus 3. Another way we learned how to write equations was through point slope form. So you do have an equation for that, and it is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Again, your m is still your slope, but this y1 is the y of the point. So either the given point or the point you choose, which means that this x1 is the x of the point. So in this equation, the only thing that's going to stay letters is the regular y and the regular x. So example 1, you're writing the equation of a line using the info m is equal to 7 and the point is 3, 8. So I do have my slope already. I have this point 3, 8, so I am going to label it as x1, y1. And remember that formula is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to plug everything in piece by piece. That first y stays y. Minus my y1 is over here as 8. So I have y minus 8 is equal to my m is here, which is 7, times, I don't do anything with that first x, minus my x1 is 3. So this is what my equation looks like. You leave it exactly like this. Don't do anything else with it. The last section is still point slope form, but it's given 2 points, so it's a little bit different. So there are actually 2 steps we're going to follow. The first one is you're going to have to find the slope. So we've done that multiple times on this with the slope formula. And then step 2, you're going to pick one of the given points and plug into an equation. It does not matter which point you pick. I suggest picking the first one just to keep it uniform, but it is up to you. So on this first example, I want you to write the equation of a line that goes through the points 3, 4 and 10, 1. So I'm going to label my points as x1, y1, and x2, y2. Step 1 told you we're plugging into the slope formula. So my slope m is equal to y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 4, over x2, 10, minus x1, 3. I do have to simplify this further. So 1 minus 4 gives me negative 3 on top, over 10 minus 3 is 7. So my slope is negative 3 over 7, or negative 3/7. Now remember, we are doing point slope, so that's the y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. I already have my slope, and I actually have labeled one of the points as x1, y1, so I'm going to use that one. So again, we start off and we leave y as just y. Minus my y1 value is 4, and it's equal to m, my slope that I just found, negative 3 over 7, times we leave the first x alone, minus x1, which is 3. And you leave this alone, don't do anything else with it. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 problems on this video for you to do on your own. In order to get the full credit, you have to have both videos done with all examples completed correctly.